All right, guys. Here we go again. This is, let me see if I don't mess this up. I'm going to try my best here to explain my other pet peeve. Money. Obviously, if I had money like I did my whole life, I wouldn't be here begging for people to go to my GoFundMe site, Silver Rescue House, and donate so I can keep the small group of animals I currently care for alive, because I mismanaged my money. I spent it all on these animals after the government, U.S. Customs, confiscated a very expensive container I imported 3 years ago. And even after having the license, hiring an attorney, I'm in a supplemental appeal. I never heard from Customs again. Shout out and sympathy for anybody that's not connected and filthy rich that's involved with U.S. Customs and Immigration Border Patrol, because to me, the giant bureaucracy is obviously not working. Almost 4 years now, and I haven't heard from my supposed supplemental appeal that they stole $300-something thousand from me and put me out of business. So because of that, I don't have any money. I've been living off my life savings trying to take care of these animals that my sister and I collected over the years. She got killed, and I'm stuck doing my best because, sure, I could save myself. Could have done it a long time ago and walked away with some money, but I just ethically couldn't do it. But okay. Money. The thing we all need. Me, again, more than anybody. I mean, who am I to tell you about money when I have none? That's what I always get. And maybe that's a good place to start, because from an individual level, we all understand money. It's quite obvious. It's scarce. You got to work hard, the usual cliches. But it has nothing to do with money in a modern political economy like we live in. Okay? We're not living in the 1800s. We're not living in the Middle Ages. We're not living in Imperial Rome. We're living after Nixon took us off our gold standard in 1971 and floated our fiat currency. Fiat basically meaning a button created out of thin air. It's not based on a commodity. It's based on a future tax credit that the government spends into existence so that we all can do what we do in capitalism, competing with one another to gain, and then, in a way, forced to use in order to pay our taxes, because the government won't accept any other currency or commodity in payment for those taxes. Very simple concept to understand. Again, I didn't think any of this up. Warren Mosler, Stephanie Kelton, Randall Ray, Mike Norman, there's a whole bunch of them out there. Mike Norman's on the damn internet all the time trying to explain to nitwits about money. And again, it has nothing to do with your political persuasion, because he's as far right from me. I mean, I'm pretty sure he has no problem eating a steak and congratulating Donald Trump on violating nuclear proliferation treaties and you know, breaking international law and invading a sovereign country, and supporting a genocide, ethnic cleansing, I don't know what you want to call it, in Gaza. But that's besides the point. That's just to point out politics has nothing to do with money or its objective reality, its creation, its mechanics. MMT explains that. And it's really, that's it. It's a descriptive analysis of our modern money system. And at its core, dollars are tax credits that the government, the United States government, injects into society through its deficit spending more than it taxes out, increases the pool, if you will, of money so that the economy can grow. And you gotta be careful with money, because it's a big octopus. You go off and it's very hard to stay in one subject. You go all over the place. I'm gonna try my best. Let's just look at money from its origination. It comes from deficit spending from the federal government. Now, there's other nuances to it that I'll get to, but they are the issuer. Everybody else is the user of that currency, the dollar. The United States government doesn't owe anybody else, including itself, including corporations, including the rest of the world that bought its treasuries. It doesn't owe anybody anything in a currency it don't have a printing press for. True, and of course, people will rush to that defense when they talk about this as to why what I'm saying is maybe not true. It is true, and yes, if you print too much money, you could cause inflation. Of course you could. If you put more currency out than the productive capacity of the people using it, objects will inflate. I mean, there's no doubt about it. And by the way, they're violating their own idea by paying interest rates to the bondholders that it's a stay-over vestige from the gold standard days when bonds were created so that people could take their dollars that were exchangeable to gold, convert them to bonds that they gave a nice interest rate in order not to be converted to gold, so they wouldn't have to come up with any more gold. And it took the money out of the system so that the government could concentrate efforts elsewhere, like during World War II. But when the system changed, you know, it's a work in progress. They don't do this, it doesn't stop and start. So they still have elements from the old system in the new system, and they co-op it and deal with it. So today we have this insane idea that we have to sell, the United States Treasury has to write bonds and sell them to primary dealers. Again, it's not the market, it's primary dealers, banks, which love the privilege of having to buy those bonds, so there never will be a crisis, no bond vigilantes, no inability to sell those bonds if that's what they want to do. And those bonds, to the amount that is spent over the taxes collected from the year prior, or they're measuring it by the quarter, they'll sell that many bonds to offset it. They're two separate institutions, two separate mechanisms. But they can't collect or sell the bonds and asset swap the dollars unless they put them into circulation first. Common sense. If the government didn't spend any dollars into existence, there simply would be none to pay for taxes or buy the bonds to get the interest rate. And again, the government's not borrowing anything by selling bonds. It's mopping up dollars already created, people or banks that would prefer to put those dollars into the safest known asset that's bearing interest. And by the way, that's a wonderful regressive tax our government gives, courtesy, wealthy institutions, the wealthiest people in our country, in the world, that own lots of assets priced in dollars, can convert them to the bonds that we stimulate, give them a stimulus, risk-free, big fat. Today it's almost 4.5%, between 4 and 5% depending on the duration, that you can buy in a federal treasury. Personally, it's taking up $1 trillion of discretionary spending a year. I would call that inflationary, without a doubt. But that's, again, and we're going to get off in subject here, that's the problem. If we're benefiting wealthy, rich people, we can never do enough for these people. And I mean, in a way, it makes sense. They're the ones writing the laws and paying the politicians that get elected, that, and make sure their interests are prioritized. But that's a political issue. Let's get back to the economics or the monetary aspect of this. They're getting a nice, wonderful stimulus, and we complain about it costing the government so much money. Well, I agree, it's probably a waste of money. I think I need it. Poor people need it. We need health care, we need education, we need science research. Oh, we need a whole bunch of things, and go on and on. We don't need to give rich people a risk-free investment. We don't need to do this. This is all a desire. It's just it's a political nicety. It's not integral to the system. The system would work fine, and they're wonderful. Let the private sector, and then the private sector would create the bonds, and not the government. The government could still set interest rates through the Fed quite easily, and it could still offer short-term notes of a day or a month that offered an interest rate that it wanted to prescribe, and that's that. That's all it has to do. It doesn't have to have all these insane amounts of bonds out there subsidizing wealthy people that don't want to put it in a more risky investment, and then complain that the government spends too much money. But again, we're going to get sidelined here. The government's never borrowing money. The United States government doesn't borrow money. That's a euphemism. That's because we call the deficit, the cumulative deficits that accrue over years, today it was $37 trillion, it's now a debt, represented in the bonds out there, okay, that they're continuing to pay interest on, increasing the money supply, it's a perk for rich people and rich corporations that want to park their money there. Now, again, the system works fine without that. But the government, we call that, it's not borrowing, it's just stimulating the economy. It's the exact opposite. And instead of curbing inflation, when there's so many bonds out there and so much of the interest rate we're stimulating those bonds with is being milked into the economy, I'm sorry, that's going to cause inflation. The exact opposite of what the Fed claims increasing interest rates does. Because who could argue not? The cost of money is reflected in all goods and services sold in the market. Everybody has to include the cost of money. I mean, every business borrows money at some level. True, there's a bit that you could say, oh, well, those interest rates will disincentivize consumers from maybe buying a car or a house because the interest rate is so high. True, without a doubt, there's an element there. But I think the propensity to spend, billionaires who are getting this $1 trillion a year in stimulus offsets that. And if you really break down our economy today, the economy that caters to wealthy is booming. Rolls Royces are on huge waiting lists. Ferraris, these bazillion-dollar mansions go up every day. Middle-class poor people, not so much. I don't think outside of food, the inflation is such a problem. I mean, prices, if you will. And they'd argue, well, these interest rates are high, so we're curbing inflation. No, we're helping inflation. We're not curbing anything. We're stimulating inflation. And I think what I meant was when rich people, the idea is rich people won't spend their money. They're responsible. So the money that they have, that we're giving them for free, won't contribute to inflationary pressures because, the propensity for them to spend compared to a poor person is less. I would argue the evidence proves not. They're still buying all kinds of things and supporting that sector of our economy that's booming. That kisses the wealthy's ass and sells them all the products that they want. That economy's booming. And if you weren't giving people $1 trillion a year, rich people, maybe it would, you wouldn't have those inflationary pressures. I don't know. It's a thought. Back to the way money works. The United States government is the issuer of that currency. It spends more than it taxes out of the economy each year, enabling your whole system to grow. If it did the opposite, as we saw during a Clinton short surplus, you'll wind up having a recession because if you tax more than you put in, you're going to remove money. Removing money isn't going to stimulate the economy. I know we're going to say, oh, well, banks loan money. They don't put it in there permanently. And you got to pay an interest rate again, and it's expected to be returned. So that's a temporary boost, and that's secondary to the stimulus from the federal government. If the federal government didn't put the money in and the economy wasn't growing, banks wouldn't lend because they would be scared they wouldn't get their money back. And again, it's only temporary. Every dollar the bank puts in, it's got to take back out. That's not true from the government's perspective. Yes, taxes are there so that the government can incentivize where maybe it wants its economy to go, like tariffs. And it could solve wealth inequality by raising taxes on wealthy people and eliminating them on the middle class. I mean, At the end of the day, there is no other way to solve wealth inequality other than redistribution, because that's what we've been doing for 50 years. Redistribution from middle-class poor people to rich people. If you don't reverse the trend, there's no way to correct it. Animal spirits and working hard isn't going to do it. It's just going to continue to exasperate the problem. Again, another issue. The money issue is quite simple. The government is the issuer of the U.S. dollar. We are users. MMT explains this perfectly well. It's just a point of logic. If the money wasn't put into circulation, there'd be none to tax or borrow, if you want to call it that. Selling bonds, there wouldn't be there. Like if you get a ticket at a theater, they got to issue the tickets and then they collect them back. If you're going on a bus, buy the token, right, and allows you entry into the bus. It's an asset swap till you spend it. The same with money, okay? And it's a social construct. Money doesn't grow on trees, and I'm sorry, you can work all day long, you're not going to get it. You can't dig money because we don't use commodity. If you went back to the gold standard, well, I suppose you could dig it up out of the ground again and go back to doing stupid things like that. If somehow we decided to adopt crypto for all the reasons we shouldn't, because we've been through all this crap before if you go through history, and I'll do another video with respect to crypto, but digital gold, if you want, Bitcoin, supposedly decentralized. No, it's very centralized. There's only a few parties that control most, 95% of the Bitcoin, and you got to be filthy rich to mine the stupid Bitcoin, which uses a tremendous amount of resources solving dumbass mathematical equations with some baloney blockchain. It's rife for fraud, money laundering, drug dealing, all those things it's great for, and it's obviously a great Ponzi game. Some other idiot might pay more for it. It's an asset that we created out of our ass, but it's not money. And it hopefully will never replace money of the U.S. I mean, it could. I'm not saying we could do anything. We could tie our shoes. The government could come up with a law that says everybody's got to tie their shoes together, and if you don't tie your shoes together, we're going to arrest you. I mean, it'd be a retarded law, but they could do it. So, I mean, yes, the government could do whatever the hell it wants. Hopefully we're smart enough not to allow it. We'll vote those idiots out. But, that, again, I don't know about all that. We don't do so well, and we don't get a very good pick. We got to pick Bidens and Trumps. And, yeah, you could argue both of them. There's no way. They're both horrible choices. I don't know. Clinton's, and, I mean, the one that was good, Bernie, they wonderful Democrats, the supposed progressive liberals, they got in there real fast and made sure Bernie wasn't an option and undermined them and gave us wonderful Hillary. Anyway, back to money. Back to money. Where was I with money? Keep basic, very simple. The United States government's an issuer. Taxes don't fund government spending. The government doesn't need to tax anything to spend. It creates the money through congressional appropriations. The reasons for tax, and there's lots of ways to tax, income being one, sales tax you could have tariffs. I mean, you could think of a bazillion ways to tax. That's how the government prevents inflation and incentivizes areas of the economy it wants to incentivize. It gives it a tool, and it forces most people to use the dollar, or maybe they wouldn't. Maybe they'd go use crypto. They'd use script money. They'd use airline miles. They'd find a different way to trade. They'd be arbitraging, all these different alternatives, if you will. But everybody's scared of taxes, and they got to pay their taxes, and the only thing the government accepts in payment of those taxes is U.S. dollars, which is what the purpose of taxes are, not to fund, but to make sure that people use it and gives sovereignty. The government has sovereignty over that currency and ensures you won't bypass its laws by using a different currency. Because at the end of the day, you got to find dollars to pay your tax bill. That's it. There's really nothing more to it. I mean, we're making all this, there's no debt, there's no China's lending us money. That's all nonsense. This is just mythological belief systems that just don't go away. And then, I don't know whether half the politicians understand this or not. They probably don't. They don't really have the time. They don't need to understand it. Everything's working for them, and the economists that get brandished out of all these universities tell them they're right. So they're not going to question it. They don't really care. When was the last time you saw a politician correct and informed? They don't. They measure the wind and go with where the political climate's taking them, so they can get the votes. If they do what I'm doing and sort of inform, they're going to piss people off. I don't know. Look at Elon Musk. He's a genius, supposedly, but he's clueless. He still thinks that the government is running commodity money. I think what he really is, he'd like the government to go back to commodity money for whatever reason, and he should argue it from that perspective. Not the government's going to go bankrupt, because it's impossible. It's impossible for the federal government to involuntarily go bankrupt. Completely impossible. Could it spend too much into the economy that causes inflation? Sure. Nobody's going to argue that. And that's where they should be focusing. That if we spend this or do this, somehow inflationary pressures are going to be caused, and that's where the argument should end. Not, whether the policy is important or not, but that it'd be great to have medical coverage, for all. It'd be great to have a great social net. It'd be great for citizens that are 65, don't have to keep working, competing, because, after all, technology's done such a great job of productivity. Why do we have to keep working harder, longer for less? And but we don't want those arguments. We want to say, well, that's all great, I agree, but we don't have the money. We're broke. There's no one that's going to lend it to us, like the individual, like me. No one's going to give us the money, so we got to save it. We got to save that which we have a printing press. And then we got to take it from you because we don't have any. And we got to come up with all these policies. It's a sickness, you see. It's a pathological sickness that's going to destroy this country eventually. Chasing the thing that we don't have a problem with. It's the resources. We don't have a problem with money. We have an unlimited amount of money. Infinity. It's a monopoly game. Ever play Monopoly? You got to give everybody X amount of money before the game starts so they couldn't pay their taxes. They couldn't buy their hotels. And then we compete with each other, and then once in a while we land on a bad place or a good place. A little luck in there. It's a great, facsimile of the economy. It really is. It's not that complicated. Now, true, you could turn your country into an export-driven economy. And we do have a surplus with services, but not goods. Trump wants to get us all back screwing, things into whatever he is envisioning. I don't know. And we could go out and sell our products, our slave labor, to the rest of the world and get their currency and claim we won. That doesn't make any sense. If you think about it, it's insanity. Why are we disrupting the goose here, giving us the golden eggs, where China is giving us all these wonderful consumer products that none of us really want to go work and toil in shitty factories for no money to produce? They're producing it because their government's subsidizing it. We get the products, and we give them points on a spreadsheet that if shit came to shit, look what we did to Russia. We ain't going to give it to them anyway, and they don't need it either. They have their own currency, and they're just as monetarily sovereign with respect to the yuan as the United States is with respect to the dollar. And they want their 1.5 billion people because they're not, they've got a history of revolution, and they're just, a couple of generations out of poverty and what's the word, subsistence level living. They want to incentivize their people to work and work in factories and get educations and produce more than their country needs so they can export. But at the end of the day, they don't need our dollars. The truth is, they can continue to, again, America's, I think, is only about 5%, not even 3% of their exports. So if we don't buy anything from them, I don't think they really care. It's not that big a deal. But just to show you a more exaggerated response, China could send all the things they wanted to send to America out on their cargo ships and then dump it. Hard, I don't suggest doing it, but I'm talking about the end result. They can throw all the crap in the middle of the ocean, come back, nothing changes. They get their money, government prints it, they did their work, like the blockchain, like the idiots doing equations to solve math problems so they can get their little stupid Bitcoin. It's the same basic principle. You'd think, after society, we're advanced enough that we don't have to do that to our citizens. We could say, listen, money is a great, measure of value, medium of exchange, and a way to save things. But instead of focusing on the money, let's focus on what we should or shouldn't do. Let's focus again on our education, our quality of life, our health care, all the things that, if you're rich, it doesn't matter. But for a lot of people, me included, you're going to live in the street if you don't have. Why am I so happy to be an American? I don't understand it. I'm a good example. I'm basically handicapped, self-employed my whole life. The government took my ability to make money away from me. So really all I can do is go be I couldn't even get a job stocking shelves because I can't walk. Who's hiring me? 60 years old with a weird looking leg? Nobody's hiring me. If I knew somebody, that's another story, but I don't know anybody. And my knowledge base is with animals with respect to benevolently treating them, not cattle to be slaughtered and pigs to be harvested and chickens. I don't know. I don't have nothing to do with that. I know how to take care of senior animals and give them a good lifestyle and basically baby them. There's no money in that. So nobody's hiring me. I'm sorry. I am completely, but if, as Warren Mosler suggests, there was a work program, then I could apply for it, and I am working hard every day. I could get the money. It's still productive. I'm contributing to the economy. I'm buying hay. I'm paying for vets. I'm buying all the stuff I need to run a farm. At the end of the day, that money's circulating into the economy, and I'm doing a good thing. Unwanted animals who otherwise would be slaughtered, I'm keeping alive. Now, you could argue that's not a good thing. Let's kill them and eat them all. All that matters on this planet is human beings and the never-ending pursuit of these points that we don't really understand, but we worship them. Because somewhere in the Bible, it must have said something about a shiny piece of gold and money. And we can't get it out of our heads that it has something to do with the church or the temple, and it's holy, and God needs your goddamn money too. Of course everybody needs your money. Go out and get some, and the government needs it, and the government's broke. We can't do shit for you but kill people and destroy things. My rant's over. I'll come back later and finish the discussion. Thank you. Please donate to my GoFundMe, silverrescuehouse.com. I desperately need money to keep these dogs and cats and horses alive. I'm behind on all my bills. I have no more money to buy feed. I'm losing my mind. So I'll keep going on, and I got to get all my knowledge out, put it on video, and then I guess, maybe then I'll go with the animals. Bye-bye, guys.